you that don't know, my father is the founder of Diana Shipping Inc., Simon Paliou, and I took over the position of CEO just under 2 years ago. I grew up in a very shipping intense family. My father is proud to say that he's involved in shipping, and his predecessors were involved in shipping since the 1900s. So as you can imagine, I have a shipping DNA running in my blood, in my veins. Sometimes I think it's not blood, but it's salt water. I knew from a very, very young age that I would follow my father's footsteps. I remember characteristically one day when I was at school, and I was probably just 5 or 6 years old, when the teacher asked me what I wanted to be when I would grow older. And I said to her just very naturally, I want to be a naval architect. And she sort of looked at me and said, a 5-year-old, 6-year-old saying they want to be a naval architect? They usually say they want to be a dancer or a fireman or something a bit more interesting. So I guess it was predetermined. I did actually study mechanical engineering. I did my first degree at Imperial College in London, and then I did my master's in naval architecture, funnily enough, at UCL, again in London. So I have a strong DNA, shipping DNA. My first job was with Lloyd's Register, the classification society. I joined their trainee ship surveyor program, which was a brilliant program to attract young people into the shipping industry. I was stationed in Spain for a year and another year in Finland, supervising the building of cruise liners in Kvernamassa yard in Finland, in Helsinki. That's what it was called at the time. During that period, I used to get numerous phone calls from my father asking me when I was planning to return back to Greece. He felt insecure that his daughter was flying around either in Spain or in Finland or still in London. So finally, after just over 2 years with Lloyd's Register, I decided to return back to Greece, and I joined my father's company. I started off in the technical department. That was back in 2000. People were getting all excited about can't remember how it was called. They were worried about the digital clock changing. Y2K. Big fuss about nothing. And I started moving into various departments slowly, the crew department, operations department. And basically I made my way up into the business.
What would you say some of the biggest challenges that you faced were as you rose through the ranks?
That's a very good question. I think one of the most personal challenges, basically, that I had to try twice as much to prove myself, to make sure that people recognize me, not because I was the daughter of Simon Paliou, but because I was capable, I was knowledgeable, I was committed, and I was committed for the long run. But also entering the male-dominated environment back 30 years ago, or maybe less than that, it wasn't easy. I remember a characteristic example. I was in Spain, and I was helping out one of the senior surveyors, a Spanish guy, and a Greek ship had entered the port, and we were supposed to go on board and do the inspections and check their annual surveys. So I boarded the ship with senior surveyor. I was a junior surveyor, and we had decided that I wasn't going to reveal my identity and nationality as a Greek. So we boarded the ship. He went into the captain's office, introduced himself. He said, hello, I'm here with my colleague. We're going to do the annual surveys. And as we sat down, the captain turned around to his chief mate and said, what is she doing on board? So I turned around in fluent Greek and I said, hello, I'm Semiramis, I'm Greek, I can speak Greek, and I'm here to help the senior surveyor do his job. Which was, fine, but it's a funny story that I like to say once in a while. But I love the industry. I'm passionate about the shipping industry. There's never a dull day, whether it's geopolitical issues, whether it's financial markets, whether it's an issue with one of our crew members on board, whether it's some regulation that just came up, or whether there is something going on in a port. So there's always something going on.
Do you want to talk a little bit about your aspirations for the company over the next 1 to 5 years?
I want to lead this company. I want the company to be a modern and current company. And what do I mean by that? I think we need to embrace digitalization. We want the company to be at the forefront of green technology. It's very important for us, but obviously very important for us to make sure that we have a strong balance sheet and we're financially sustainable in order to be able to do all these things. And additionally, very important that we have our social responsibility, that we make sure that our people on board and in the office feel empowered and value what they do and understand how I'm pushing the company forward into that new era and new direction. But having said that, I think I'm very, very excited that I'm leading the company through these radically changing times in the shipping industry. You're talking about something new, something that will change over the next 10, 20 years for the shipping industry, and I'm really challenged to be part of this change.
I mean, we've been hearing a lot about decarbonization, and that is the main theme driving the industry in many ways today forward as a necessity, as part of a global effort to get this planet into better shape. And so ESG is very much on the forefront of people's minds. But you mentioned the social, and I'm also going to touch on the G. How do you keep focus on the S and the G with so much focus on the E? Because I think those are equally important, and maybe on the governance side, maybe even the most important.
Yeah, I think you're spot on. Everyone's talking about decarbonizing the industry and bringing in new fuel. I want to talk about moving our industry into a more sustainable maritime industry. For me, that's what's important. Don't get me wrong, it's not that the environment, the decarbonization is not important. It's very important. But equally important is making sure that we have a maritime industry which is inclusive, it is fair, it is just, it makes sure that the manpower has the knowledge and the mindset to bring all this change that is going to come about. And also, which is the S part of the ESG, but equally important is making sure that we have the policies, the procedures, the best behaviors, the risk assessments, the transparency that we just heard previously. They're equally important in order to be able to have the company prepared to receive the technological changes that are coming. So for me, ESG is a framework that assists the companies to move forward. I see ESG as a big puzzle, and the Maritime's a big puzzle where you have the E, the S, and the G, and we need to work simultaneously on all three topics. And then suddenly, as the pieces fall into place, you'll have the sustainable maritime industry. So for me, I hear people thinking that ESG is a tick-the-box procedure or a burden in some cases. Well, for me, it's not. It's a tool to move forward.
Opportunity.
It's an opportunity. I like to go to bed at night and feel that I've done something for the planet, something for my children and their kids, making sure that I can do the most so that they have a better planet, a healthier planet, and a better society to live in. I mean, is that too much to ask? I don't know.
Good ambition. Good ambition. So, Semiramis, you're quite involved in a number of outside organizations like HELMEPA, InterMEPA, and Global Maritime Forum. Obviously, high focus on sustainability, decarbonization, the environment. Can you talk a little bit about the roles you play there and the focus, and how is that kind of contributed to your mindset in approaching the job at Diana?
Well, HELMEPA is the Hellenic Marine Environment Protection Association. It was founded 40 years ago by a very prominent, forward-looking and visionary Greek ship owner, George Livanos. And he actually joined the Union of Greek Ship Owners and the Union of Seafarers, two unions that don't always see eye to eye, to work voluntarily to protect the seas, to reduce emissions and pollution from the seas, and also to work with society, children in schools, to cultivate what today we think is obvious, but 40 years ago it wasn't, awareness about the environment. So 40 years on, I think we're at a similar crossroad. I'm the chairperson of HELMEPA. We're at a similar crossroad, but this time we're not just talking about environmental awareness, but I think we're talking about Sustainable Development Goals awareness. What is it, and how do we implement these principles? And this is what we're doing as HELMEPA. We're providing the toolkit for people to understand and to implement these changes. And it's very rewarding when you see people acting as agents of change at a time when change is so important. So that's HELMEPA. INTERMEPA is sort of the international body that encompasses other MEPAs that were formed in various countries, such as NAMEPA, which is in North America. You probably know that. In Cyprus, CYMEPA, Turkey, TURKMEPA, and most recently FILMEPA from the Philippines, and we have a couple of others. So we get together and exchange information, data, best practices, and try and move forward in a more global way. Now, Global Maritime Forum is something I've just recently joined on the board of directors. It's a group of people from the entire supply chain that get together. So port authorities, ship owners, ship managers, charterers, governments, regulators, fuel producers, engine manufacturers, shipyards, classification societies, B&I clubs, the finance side. I'm sure I'm forgetting others as well. But
you named a few.
But it's a group of people that are willing to make the change, and they sit down and discuss about the future of the shipping industry and how they can embrace the human element of that to make sure that they will be there to bring these changes along. But because let's not forget, the human element is very important to make these changes. It's built on the principle of collaboration and the feeling and the knowledge that when you work together with people, you can get much further ahead than working by yourself. And it's surprising how much progress Global Maritime Forum has done within this limited time it's been around. They've created the Poseidon principles, the All on Board Alliance, the Getting to Zero Coalition, the Neptune Declaration, that's the one I was looking for. And these are all initiatives that Global Maritime Forum has brought forward.
I think we've certainly heard on several of the panels earlier today the importance of collaboration across the supply chain as being critically important to getting ultimately to the solution.
Correct.
It's not on any one sector or industry or stakeholder.
It's very difficult to do anything. The risk is huge, and unless you can share the risk with the entire supply chain, it's very difficult to make the first move.
Yeah. So I'm going to go back for a minute to one of your comments earlier about when I asked you about the aspirations. You talked about the financial position of the company, and somebody said earlier you need green to go green, or something to that effect. Could you talk a little bit more about how you're thinking about, the company going forward from a financial perspective?
We have a strategy which is, I have my team over there, they love doing these and talking about it. So we're a conservative company. We try to be, our chartering strategy is always long-term. We try to hedge our strategy. And we make sure that our balance sheet is always strong in order to be able to do things and expand.
It's certainly been our experience over quite a long period of time. another couple of minutes.
Maybe I would like to talk about the legacy.
Please.
I feel I feel sometimes that I have a strong duty to protect and endorse the legacy of the company. The company has a strong name, and so does my father. But at the same time, I feel that I need to make the changes in order to move forward. So it's always a fine line between making changes and staying in the past. But the biggest challenge for me is making sure that I take my people with me, the people on board and ashore, that will support these changes going forward.
I mean, these are, I think, from an historical perspective, and in what I think many people think of the Greek shipping industry as very traditional.
Mm-hmm.
I can imagine some of this can be challenging for an organization to move into this kind of period of pretty dramatic change. How do you tackle that?
Yes, it has to do really with the father figures that are leading a number of Greek shipping companies. They are very reluctant to let control and let the younger generation to lead. I think I'm very privileged that I've been able to prove myself over the years. I've got a father who stepped aside. He remains as a chairman of the company, but still has endorsed the changes I want to bring about and understands the need to remain current and progress. He's also, don't forget, he has a technical background, so he aspires to a lot of the changes that are coming about.
But it's your responsibility to bring the organization with you.
It is. It's a huge responsibility. We have a very nice saying in Greece, which says, "Ο καλός ο καπετάνιος στη φουρτούνα φαίνεται," which translates that a good sea captain proves his capabilities in a storm. So I think we're entering the storm period with all these changes, as I mentioned. And maybe in 10 years you'll invite me again and we can see how I did.
Maybe sooner than that.
Maybe sooner. But I feel confident we're on the right track.
Okay.
Thank you.
I think we will wrap it up there. Thank you so much for your time and your time.
Thank you so much.